Hi everyone, welcome back to another Simple Planes video. And, well, as you can see, I've made a lot of progress on the SWL 120's interior. In this video I'm going to explain the work I've done, and I'm also going to be doing a little bit of other work on things like the outlines for the doors, because that is a very thick outline. So, let's get started. In my last video, the interior of this plane was completely empty, and now, at least most of it, is finished. This is the middle section of the economy class, and it is, well, finished. The back section, I need to figure out what to call these segments, but the back section, I guess, is also going to be the same as this section. I just haven't done it yet, or at least I haven't finished it yet, because it's the same thing. I can just copy and paste it when I eventually export all this to Unity. More on that later. So what exactly have I done? Well, I've added some seats, I've also added some overhead panels, and well, I'm not sure what else to explain here. I've pretty much done the entire interior. The last version you've seen did have a ceiling, however, I removed all of that, but it wasn't really accurate to a real life plane, and I basically just redid it. Last design had this like curvy pattern, where it just went up, and then down, and then up and down. This design has more of a compact version, or like a more open one. We have a flat ceiling above the seats, which is where the overhead panels are. And then that has a very small curve, which goes up to a larger curve, and then it just cuts to the like oval shape, like half oval, of the main ceiling. There's also some lights there, the very white lines you can see. Those don't actually provide any illumination because of how they work, but I just added them for a little more realism. There's also some lights here. To add more detail, I then added some black lines for the overhead bins. I could make these open. I chose not to because of the performance. And also, I am going to make this into like one part is actually a bunch of parts style of modding now, which I've explained in the last few videos I've made. So all of these seats, all the overhead panels, that will all be taken care of in Unity. I just added these as like a placeholder. So these are one part per 3 seats. These are from another mod which I co-developed. So the overhead panels. I'm going to add both of these as well as the rest of the interior into a single part, which transfers, as I've explained in a few of my other videos, the load from CPU to GPU and also decreases the part count. So that's the overhead bins. The overhead panels are what I call a Simple Planes export, so they were made in Simple Planes. You can see like fuselages, glass, small fuselages, and then they were exported and then re-added. This is in a mod that I co-developed. Same with the seats. These are made in Simple Planes, but they're one part per 3 seats because they were exported and then imported. I haven't done any actual calculations of what I will when editing this. I'm going to think that this is maybe 100,000 parts for the entire interior if I were to have purely vanilla parts. So this is like 22 parts for one of these, just one of these. It's like a lot of them. Same with the seats. The seats are like 100 parts per set of 3. There's a lot of parts in this, even though it's actually just 2,600 for the whole fuselage here. Some other random details include these black lines along the walls. I'm not sure what the name is, but they're like these little lines that you can see in any major airliner in between every 2 windows. I think they're related to like the structural skeleton, but I'm not sure. I just added them to add even more realism. There's also this little drink cart thing. So the front interior of the plane has 4 carts, like 4 food carts. Actually, before I start there, I just remember there's this first class section. I forgot to show you that. This doesn't have the overhead panels in it, just has the blank fuselage, like rails and spacers. Because I never was going to add this. I added the economy one just so I could have a look at it, but I haven't bothered in first because I'm just going to add that later. It just saves time. I did do it in the first row, which you can see. Here it is. You can see here. There's also some screens. Anyway, where were we? Right. Front interior. So the front interior has these 4 carts. When I was making this part, I made sure to include this part here, which is not poked, as a separate part, which at the time was just incorporated into the part for the front interior, but I made it so I could just take the model for the front for this one cart, and then have it as another part, which I could then drive around the plane. So this is how you can export the plane. Yeah, this cart, I'm probably going to figure out a way to hide this joystick when you're not using it. And then when you're in the first person camera of the drink cart, it's this camera here, and it goes up, like it moves up, controlled by this control base. And then you can grab this joystick and you can drive the cart around. There's also a third person camera so you can look around as well. This cart is also how I made that cinematic intro. I turned off the whatever those details were, I think it's the graphical display or something, and then I just drove it forward. For the rotating shot, I actually had another rotator which was rotating another camera. So I used the string cart to move around the plane. I also finally put in this rear door. This took a bit of math to do, because it's on like an angle, but yeah, it's a rear door now. All of these doors will be one part each. And what else is there? Here's another view of the interior. There's screens in all of the seats. The screens aren't part of the base seat part. That does include tray tables, but it doesn't include screens. So I just added those. They contribute to a lot of the part count in this free export version, which is like a version before I actually export it, just so I have the original, like when I built all the parts. And also there's a small update on the wings. What I've done with the wings is I have finally exported them. So this is the non-modded wings. There's no mods at all in here. They have 900 parts. And what I did is I exported all of this. I separated all the rotators and deleted them from the export because rotators cannot really... They can export a 3D model of them, but you can't retain like the function of the part. So I deleted all that. Labels also don't export correctly, so I just deleted them. And then I combined all parts which form a single body, like the outboard right aileron is a single part. And it has two colors. It has these black static wicks, and then it has the white aileron via foil. And then that is one part. So it's not one part in this, but it's one part in the mods version. And then I added all those parts to the game. This is the mods version. It has just 300 parts. The reason for it still being 300 is all those labels and rotators, but it's still an improvement of 500. So this is the base part. You can see it's one part. So really all of the main static bodies, as I've just explained, are one part. And to make this work with relation to mass and drag, all of the parts in this plane have calculate drag false, which I always do, just to improve performance. They also have no mass, aside from like a few small parts, just to make it have mass. 30,000 pounds are being provided in mass by this like support block. This is not for the final plane, this is just so I can hold all the different parts up. This has a lot of mass. However, most of these wing parts, this is the non-mod version, do not actually have mass, with the exception of some parts which did not want to work with no mass. But most of them don't actually have mass. While I was exporting the wings, I came to the conclusion all of these wheel parts have to have mass for them to like function correctly. So I just made the gear into a separate file again and made it all have mass. I also moved the cockpit into another file, just so I can build it easily. This SWL 120 main file will eventually be taken apart, because this is a very old plane. There have been no updates to the engines or the tail. So I said in the introduction of this video I was going to work on the door lines, so let's do that now. I'm going to start with one of these middle doors because they don't have a bunch of random numbers. For the middle part of the middle door, I'm going to get this piece. Currently it has I think 3% of fill in terms of thickness, so the bottom fill is 3% below the top fill, if that even makes sense. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the bottom fill be, let's just try 0.5%. So 0.285 for both of those. I think that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece off, because we don't need that, that's just an extra part. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take its top fill, which is 0.72. I'm going to apply that to this piece. Well, actually, I'm going to make it 0.72 or 715 because we have that 0.5% of that top piece. So there we go. The same can be done for the bottom part.
12 seconds later.
And that has been done. Now for the end pieces, this will be a little more difficult but still relatively simple. First I'm going to duplicate this piece. Now I'm going to use 3 pieces for the outline instead of just 1 piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this head's position the same so I can test this. Then I'm going to attach the back connection of it to some other random connection like this. I'm going to do this one. And then instead of 0.25, I'm going to try not 1, 0.05. Looks about right. Now I need to figure out how much this piece decreases in fill. The width is staying the same the entire time. It's just the fill that is changing. This is going to take a bit of math, so I'm going to do this off camera.
Many minutes later.
So I kind of went ahead and did all the other doors. The 2 middle doors were relatively simple because the width and height of the fuselages stayed the same. But these doors I had to do even more math. I'm going to start with explaining how I did these doors. The first thing I did was, as I knew I had to do 3 parts instead of just having this one end piece, as you can see in this door, I took these 2 lengths that I had. I then did some math to figure out what, in the case of just these middle doors, what the fill would be, that just rounds it up, what the fill would be in that 0.05 length area. So it wasn't the nice round values that I had, and actually it still isn't, because this is inside the outline. Instead of being something like 72% or 63%, it was something like 0.691. So it wasn't 69%, it was 69.1%. So this one, even though it was a little bit complicated, was really easy compared to these back ones. I had to do a lot of math to figure out what the width and height values would be, to figure out what the rise values would be. So really, I had to divide this already divided section from this main section into even more sections. And without explaining in detail how I did this, that's really all I can explain. I used a lot of math and got some values. So now I've done the door outlines, I'm also going to do the cargo door outlines, and that has been done. Like these doors here, it was really simple because the width and height do not change. And also, just like these 2 middle doors, once I did one of them, I could copy it to the front. Now about how these cargo doors work, there's this other feature which I haven't added yet, and it's where there is a panel next to the cargo door cut out from the fuselage, where there's some controls and some realistic text like on a real plane. So instead of clicking a button or pressing an activation group and it opens, you have to manually hold a button for it to open. I'm not going to do that in this video because I'm running out of time, but I'll either do that in a future video or I will explain it in a future video. And I think that just about concludes today's video. In the next video I'll probably be explaining more progress updates. I'm pretty sure the tail will be done by then, not sure though. And also, I'm not going to export the interior for a while, because there's some other stuff we need to do to finish it up, including everything in the back, because currently nothing, except for this small fuselage where I'm going to put some toilets. So I haven't really finished the back at all. But the general economy layout and first class have been finished. So I hope you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!